to WREVA Electrifying News, March 2024 edition. Welcome everyone to the show. With me as regularly, we have Mr. Eric Stevens joining us from the Listowel area. How are you today, sir?
I am doing great, Mark. Just watching Mother Nature with her drinking problem right now. So certainly, spring. The first day of spring is here, and winter showed up. So
exactly, we got a roller coaster ride when it comes to warm and cold weather. So I think last time we recorded, it was much nicer outside than it is today. But I'm sure this is winter's last hurrah. So there's always that.
yeah.
Also, you may notice that our amigo Ian Graham is not with us tonight. He is enjoying the last days in Mexico, and he'll get together with us again next month when we do another Electrifying News. But I hope, Ian, you're enjoying the last rays of sunshine in Mexico this evening. With that, I think we will get to the stories tonight. Let's do a little screen share here. And here we go. So March edition. Eric's got our first story, and it's about the UBC survey or story that was written up recently.
Yeah, so this was a story that Ian had originally forwarded us a while back, brought to our attention about the study at the University of British Columbia. And then also I've had another friend forward it to me as well, too. So it's certainly making the rounds. And this was highlighted with the global news as well, too. So the University of British Columbia did this extensive study, and I got the chance to read through the study a little bit. And it almost seems like it was multiple groups of people working on it when I looked at it. It looked like maybe they got some people from the engineering department to work on some parts and some people from the business department to work on other parts. And they kind of cobbled it together to make this comprehensive report. And some of it is extremely well detailed. And they went into great depths looking at the energy efficiency of vehicles in the winter. They even looked at the energy efficiency drop of gas vehicles in the winter. And they looked at, average kilometers driven in different markets, cost of electricity in those markets, cost of gasoline in those markets. And they cobbled together a whole report saying, what is the break even required in different regions? And, not surprisingly, Quebec is, high incentives and low cost of electricity, high cost of gas came out as the best area for break even. And, Ontario was somewhere in the middle of the pack. And then the northern climates like Nunavut and the Northwest Territories ended up being kind of the worst. But it was an interesting study. There were some fundamental things, though, I think they may not have, gotten right. Like, for their cars, they were comparing a Tesla Model 3 to a base model Toyota Camry LE, which feature to feature is not exactly very comparable. So that I think they gave maybe a little bit of the upfront cost benefit to the gas-powered vehicles in that case. But that's sort of the big takeaway from that. But it's still a very interesting study.
Yeah, and I guess they did an SUV study as well. They did a gas Kona compared to an electric Kona, so that was a pretty even match there.
Yeah.
And I noticed the actual, they broke it down to a number of kilometers that you need to drive in a given day in order to break even the cost between an EV and an ICE vehicle. And in Quebec, which was the best standing, I think that was about 44 kilometers that you had to drive on a daily basis. That's fairly close to what Canadians on average drive per day, maybe a little bit higher than what it is. But Ontario was sitting at about 67 or 68 cents. Kilometers. So that was, we're a little bit higher, but the notable thing is that the top three, Quebec, BC, New Brunswick, these are all provinces that provide users with or buyers with a additional provincial rebate. Whereas in Ontario, we know that we've been missing that since Doug Ford showed up. So this is something that makes sense, that the cost of ownership is down because each of those three provinces are getting larger subsidies through a provincial rebate as well as the federal rebate added to it. So not a surprise that those ones are the best Best in Show.
Yeah, and I mentioned there appeared to be some business students that got involved in this as well too. They talked about net present value calculations for this for those that are business students, and they used an 8% discount rate. So they were basically assuming that people that would take the capital difference between the cost of an EV and a gas car and invest that money into something with a pretty good rate of return. So I think that's not a very likely scenario.
Yeah, exactly. So that's another bit of a flaw in it, that most people, after buying a new asset like a car, are not looking to squirrel away additional money that they believe they're saving and trying to look at a vehicle that can provide them with a great return. So, Eric, why don't you work on that thing with your eye there? I will go on to the next story. We've got this story coming in from the CBC. A few weeks ago, the CBC published a story about Brian Sanderson, who's the Juno award-winning musician based in Quebec. He was having an issue with his Nissan Leaf. He had spent in the area of $10,000 trying to fix the Leaf over a number of service calls over the period of half a year or so, and he could never get the Leaf running properly. It came down to issues that the Leaf was bricked, it wouldn't move. He thought it had something to do possibly with the battery. Nissan was not all that cooperative with trying to get to the root of the problem. He had issues with Nissan and that particular dealership, but his feeling was that the battery was a warranted part, and it should be honored by Nissan further into the ownership of the vehicle. I believe his vehicle was a 2016, so it's 8 years old. And at this point, Brian has basically had to leave that vehicle sitting in his driveway because he spent too much money on it, he believes, and doesn't want to go any further with it. Well, this story actually got in the ears of other Canadians that are experiencing some similar problems with Nissan and their Leafs, where some are having issues where it's down to about 99 kilometers of range on a full charge. We've got others even from out of the country that wrote into the CBC indicating that they're experiencing some of these problems. So Nissan's response to some of this is that the kilowatt battery that they put in these original Leafs is something that they don't manufacture anymore, and therefore they don't have anything to replace battery issues with a new battery because they don't make the battery. I think that's a bit of a cop-out. I think that there are warranty requirements that manufacturers have to confirm that they're covering the car for at least a 10-year period when it comes to the battery, if not longer. And Nissan has kind of dropped the ball here, and it's unfortunate that we have to highlight this type of thing to our users. I would like to know from our members at WREVA if they've experienced any issues with their Nissan Leafs. We have a number of people that use Leafs in our membership, and it'd be interesting to see if they're having any issues or have had any experience with Nissan when it comes to warranty type issues. So please put your message in the comments or send us a note. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, this is something where I think Nissan really should step up and treat owners right. It's been kind of known that Nissan made a design decision on the Leafs to not use an actively thermally managed battery pack, and that's known to create higher levels of degradation in those types of batteries. The battery pack today that is in production is a 40 kilowatt hour battery pack, and that battery pack is somewhat interchangeable with the 30 kilowatt hour battery pack that's in the cars today. And there is some precedent for replacing batteries such as that as well too. Like Hyundai and General Motors had big recalls on the Kona and the Bolt EV a while back, replacing battery packs. And in the situation of the Bolt EV, they gave consumers a updated battery, went from 60 to 65 kilowatt hour, and reset the battery warranty as well too on the vehicle. So I think Nissan should step up and do right by their customers and look, at least give them an upgrade path or a path forward on how to handle their vehicles.
Absolutely. Quick shout out to Rob S., who provided this story to us. So thanks, Rob, for sending that in. And if you have a story you'd like us to cover, feel free to send it into our email address, and that might be a future story that we cover here as well. Next, Eric's got a story about EV chargers increasing.
Yeah, this is these numbers, I knew, watching the number of chargers that are getting installed across the country and stuff like that, I always knew that there was huge investments and there's always a lot of talk of new infrastructure coming in. And now we've got some actual numbers of actually what's happening, what's going on. And what was interesting is in the month ending, so here they're considering a year basically to March 1st, 2024, so up until recently. But in the year prior, we saw a 30% increase in chargers. That's DC fast chargers and level 2 combined. But in the last year, we saw now a 32% increase. So this is a 32% on top of the last 30% we had last year. So this is a massive increase in the number of chargers that are being installed across the country. Even just in DC fast chargers, they said as of March 1st, there was nearly 5,000 DC fast chargers in Canada, and that was an increase of 1,000 units just in the last year. So it is just a phenomenal growth that's happening in the charging network. And then to top it off as well too is now the industry is now starting to harmonize around the J3400 standard, or the NACS standard, as a lot of people are calling it now, the North American Charging Standard. And a lot of manufacturers are now starting to get access to that. Ford and Rivian now have access to that, and rumors are that General Motors should be getting that almost any day now as well too. Some great growth and great changes in the charging infrastructure network in the last year and moving forward.
Yeah, another story I saw about fast charging was that Flow enabled the pass-through charging. So with GM, you can now just plug in your car using your GM app, and it will automatically read your account, and if funds are available, it'll start charging automatically. So that's a plus, just like Teslas do now. You just pull up to a pump, you plug in, and boom, it starts the procedure for you and starts the juice flowing. So that is good to see. And again, I really hope that this second round increase in charger networks that are coming to Canada, that we maintain them a little better than what we did in the first round, because that was certainly lacking this round. Hopefully, some of these operators have learned their lessons. Next story, questionable story here, good or bad news. Quebec, of course, has been the province that's been leading Canada when it comes to a provincial rebate. They had a $7,000 rebate on vehicles. There were some stipulations based on how much the vehicle cost and such things like that, but it was really successful. Quebec was able to go to, if not the top of the list, the second in the list of provinces that were selling the most EVs Canada-wide. And in fact, in the third quarter of 2023, there was more than 1 in 5 new vehicles in Quebec were electric vehicles. So that was over 20% that they hit at the end of 2023, which is phenomenal because, of course, we're going towards a zero emission future. You have to get to the first 10, 20%, 30% as you go along. So Quebec was well on their way. This prompted the government of Quebec to look at the balance book, the books, to see how much money is actually going out in this program. And they've decided that there's no real need for additional incentive going forward beyond 2027 for EV purchases. So they're believing that the momentum is already there enough that we're going to be able to get to a zero emission future past 2027 without a provincial incentive. Nothing's been said about the federal incentive that is out there, but it's up for review too as well. It's coming to a point where it will be reviewed based on the funds that have been going out. So I'm wondering if this is the first indicator that maybe provinces are about to say, you know what, we've had enough with the rebates. We believe that we're at a tipping point already, and that EV adoption is just going to continue based on the other positives of EV and people having the good word spread amongst their family and friends and relatives that this is the way to go. So it's questionable. Of course, being an EV advocate, we'd like to see the incentives last longer. We always do, but I think Quebec's going to see a banner year this year because the incentives are good until the end of 2024 at the full amount. So these last 8 or 7 months, you're going to see some records broken in Quebec for EV sales again, I believe.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance you might see some manufacturers even divert a little bit of inventory towards Quebec to try to take advantage of this. But yeah, it's one of those big arguments. We know incentives can't last forever. In order for an industry to be sustainable, at some point the incentives have to go away. I guess it's debatable whether is Quebec doing this too soon or not. I think that's going to be an interesting discussion topic. It'd be interesting to hear other people's opinions on this as well too, whether Quebec is moving too quickly on this or not. Though we have some other stories that we're going to talk about tonight as well too, about how the industry and the costs for EVs are shifting as well. So I think obviously in the electric vehicle world, we've seen a lot of cars that are manufacturers have typically led with their pricier models or higher trimmed models for the last little bit. And now we're starting to see manufacturers and a lot of announcements shift towards now getting to more lower cost EVs. And I think even the major manufacturers are concerned because the Chinese manufacturers are coming up very quickly. And so a lot of the other major global manufacturers are now looking at how to stem that potential threat and coming up with their own cost efficient EVs to combat that. So I think that all plays a role in going forward for the need of incentives.
Absolutely. 2 things I'll give kudos to the government of Quebec for is they announced this early, so at least people can plan around the next 8 months, 9 months to figure out what they want to do. If they're sitting on a fence, that gives them plenty of time to actually get off that fence and make a choice either way. Second thing is that there is a step down, so you don't lose the entire incentive overnight. It drops to 4,000 and then 2,000 before in 2027 there's nothing. So that's another positive, that at least there is a step down from what it is.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Next, Eric's got a story about some EV muscle.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about this one. We talked about it briefly before. I think we've mentioned before that the Charger would be coming to Windsor to be assembled there. But now Stellantis has officially unveiled the vehicle. And it's on their what they call their STLA large platform. And part of the surprising news is this isn't just one vehicle, but it's a series of vehicles. So they're coming out with the first Charger here. The first one that will be in production this year, actually this summer, will be the 2-door coupe. But then they're also launching a 4-door version as well too, with a lift back as well. And it's a rather impressive vehicle in itself, a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack. And so there'll be 2-door and 4-door versions, both made in Windsor. And also there's going to be other future STLA large vehicles in Windsor, a Chrysler vehicle. Most people are presuming it will be a minivan, probably an electric minivan, which I think a lot of people are waiting for, a vehicle like that on the marketplace, especially a lot of families. But the good news about this is the first real passenger vehicle, electric vehicle that's made in Canada. I mean, to date, we do have General Motors with the Bright Drop, Zevo 400 and 600 being produced in Ingersoll, but that's largely for commercial vehicle use only. So this is the first major passenger EVs that are going to be manufactured in Canada.
Exactly, that's all EV, because of course Dodge did have the Pacifica, which was a hybrid system, right? So this will be the first all EV passenger vehicle, and Windsor is going to be manufacturing, which is great for the people of Windsor. It's great for the people of Ontario. It's great for the sub-industries that supply the auto industry. So this is part of that base that we've been talking about forever, where different companies are setting up manufacturing, they're setting up battery production, they're setting up mineral extraction. All these things feed to make this car and others. So that's the spin-off of putting the whole infrastructure in place in order to get an end product like the Dodge Charger EV.
Yeah, and Stellantis is partnering with LG Chem to build the battery facility also in Windsor for this as well. So they're going to have the battery manufacturing facility and the cars assembled in Windsor. So it's a good boon for that area.
Absolutely. And we hope to see more of that as time goes along. So that's great. That's a good news story. Another piece of good news is that the sales for 2023 have come in, and Canada as a whole has surpassed the 10% mark of new registrations of EVs in Canada. We've got, at this point, it was actually 10.8, so almost 11% was the actual total. And that this represents an increase of 49% over 2022 and over 115% over 2021. So we've got this momentum that's going where we have added more and more vehicles to the mix. The fastest growth in the EV market in Canada is taking place, again, no surprise, British Columbia, 20% of their sales, Quebec with 19% of their sales are EVs, and Ontario 7% in third. And of course, by no coincidence, British Columbia and Quebec have the highest provincial incentives when paired with the federal credit. They by far get the largest rebates. But again, as we spoke about just recently, Quebec is changing their rules when it comes to it. And if things, as Eric was mentioning in the last, as the competition comes in, as new people, as China comes, there is going to be a rush to get off of incentives. We're not wanting to pay businesses just to come in and set up shop to get incentives. We want them to be competitive, price their cars competitively in order to push the prices down and make it more affordable for everyone. So these changes are coming. We knew they were coming. It was just a question of, are they coming a little bit too fast or not? But at least we have now crossed 10% as Canadians as a whole. And hopefully, as we move along a little further, we'll be increasing that. And it probably won't be the dramatic amounts that we've seen in the past 2 years. We won't see a 50% or a 115%. As you start to take up market share, that amount drops.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. Yeah. And you know, there's a lot of misinformation out there that EV sales are slowing down and that they're stopping. The difference here is the rate of growth is not as fast as it was before, but it's still growing, and it's still growing. You know, 49% is still incredible growth. So yes, EV sales have slowed somewhat. It's not the 115% we saw the year before, but 49% is still fantastic. And obviously with the high interest rates and stuff like that, we're seeing a little bit of slowness, but it's still incredible growth. And there's definitely a huge amount of momentum there and a lot of great new products entering the marketplace.
Yeah. So we will see what this quarter brings and the rest of the quarters this year and see how it compares to the past 2 years. But again, as mentioned, I believe we are still accelerating with the amount of vehicles that are actually being sold. Next, Eric's got a story about, again, more good news.
Yeah, so this kind of ties into what I was just talking about there as well, too. Is analysts are expecting that the EV battery prices are going to decline, 40% in the next couple of years, basically. So over the next 2 years, we're expecting a significant drop in battery prices, and we're already seeing that today. So the cost of a lot of the raw materials, nickel, copper, lithium itself, those raw material costs have come down drastically. A while ago, there were some projections about how battery prices and battery costs are going to fall. And in 2022 and 2023, we kind of bucked that trend where some of the prices actually came back up again. And that was partially because of supply constraints and after effects of the COVID pandemic, things like that, ended up actually causing a temporary increase in some of these battery supply costs. But now we're starting to see that normalize again, and the costs have drastically decreased this year. And battery raw material costs are coming down significantly. And there's a couple factors, and that part of it is the supply chain is catching up. They anticipated, in a lot of cases, they anticipated more growth than what we actually got. And that's actually giving the supply chain a bit of a breather to get caught up. And I think the economy has slowed in certain sectors as well, too, which is allowing the raw materials for things like copper and nickel to come down in cost as well, too. So now that's decreasing the cost of battery. But not only that, but now they're also saying that there's some studies out there that are showing by 2027 that EVs should be able to hit cost parity with gas-powered vehicles without subsidies. So that kind of ties into our previous studies there as well too, is that in the next few years we might see EV prices fall or a lot more new vehicles enter the market that now cost the same as a gas-powered vehicle does. And that does open the question: do we really need incentives at that point to push them?
Exactly. And I think this has been a spool up over the past 5 years, where manufacturers have realized that EVs are coming. More and more are getting prepared for this, and they're doing that by buying supply. They're building new plants. They're upping their production. They're getting better with the actual production of these vehicles, so they're getting more efficient. And we've got these outliers of messages that are coming from different manufacturers saying we're going to be producing a low-cost EV in the future, and a number of them have come by with the price of about $25,000 US is where a few of them are aiming. Most recently, just an information forum was held by Ford, and they surprised the audience by indicating that that is the number they're heading towards in the next couple of years of having an EV offering at that. So certainly, if you can get the price down even further, that's even going to drive more people to the showrooms to get themselves an EV at a discounted price, a new price level that becomes lower and lower. And again, that competition drives everyone to follow. So look forward to that. And again, it's only 2 years away, basically, for this particular story.
Yeah.
Next, Doug Ford happened to be in Windsor the other day, and he was there for an unrelated media scrum. But one of the reporters asked Doug about Honda. Because Honda is considering building an additional plant in Alliston, Ontario, worth about $18.4 billion. They're also indicating that they're going to be changing some of that plant's output immediately to hybrid vehicles. And they're also considering building full EVs at Alliston as well. So Doug had indicated that he was really excited about the future of the auto industry as a whole in Ontario, and he didn't spring anything about Honda, but he did mention the name, but didn't go any further. So obviously the government is in conversation with Honda, trying to work out if they can come to some sort of agreement to get that extra plant built in Alliston and convert some of those vehicles to EV, if not just hybrid or a combination. But obviously, the government of Ontario would like to see them follow that path. And if you've got a successful plant with a group of workers that are already doing a great job for you, building vehicles that you're shipping across North America, it's a lot easier to reinvest in that area of the country because you've got this track record. And Honda has been successful in Alston. They have been there for decades now. And it's something that we hope that they will increase that investment. And it sounds like this may just come true.
Yeah, absolutely. Honda's had great success with their facility in Alston, Ontario. And obviously, we've talked about this many times over many shows on how Ontario has become a powerhouse in, EV battery manufacturing and raw components and things like that as well too. Now, on top of the great automotive expertise we already have here in Ontario, it doesn't surprise me that Honda's strongly considering Ontario for its battery plant.
Yeah, and of course with NAFTA 2, we have the ability that these vehicles can not only sell in Canada, but also can be sold in the United States and Mexico for that matter. And what is also good here is that Honda has not jumped into EVs quite yet, right? This is they've got a new offering that they've just introduced that was a shared cost with GM. The Prologue, I'm guessing. I think that was
that's
so.
And the Acura ZDX as well too. Yeah.
So these are vehicles that they were sharing the investment with GM, but Honda wants to break out into their own system because, of course, it's more cost effective for them. And if Alston was to come online as the first of these, that would certainly be a boon to sales of Honda EVs throughout North America. And what better way for Ontarians to benefit? But every vehicle that's made there is sold from the Ontario's province, and it would push our vehicles out into the marketplace. So this could be a big win. Got my fingers crossed. Hope that this we get some news on this soon.
Yeah.
Next story. This was interesting. Eric supplied this, and I was kind of shocked. I didn't know this was even a thought.
Yeah, I just saw this coming up here, and I know there's been a lot of talk a while back about, because we hear a lot about vehicle fleets like FedEx and UPS and Amazon, partnering with a number of companies to start electrifying their fleets. And for a long time, it's been pretty quiet from Canada Post. We haven't heard too much about some of the vehicles that Canada Post has been working on, but now here we've got a situation where it looks like Rivian and the company Morgan here is going to be partnering together to build a new EV that Canada Post would be using. So this is a vehicle that's more catered to the postal type worker, I guess, versus the parcel packages. This is more catered to the traditional type of vehicle that Canada Post uses today, and they're going to be partnering with Rivian. Using lithium iron phosphate type batteries and 100 kilowatt hour battery pack to make this sort of new electric postal carrier. And this is fantastic news, I think. So Rivian's got a pretty good track record now. The vehicles that they've got humming out right now are known to be pretty good. Their systems are pretty good, and now partnering with the Morgan Olson vehicles here, these are going to be, I think, a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it's interesting. Postal workers need a different flavor of vehicle, and we've seen that with the gas vehicles that they currently drive. They've got the steering wheel on the other side because a lot of times they're delivering on rural routes that require the driver to just pass things out the window into mailboxes, and of course having the steering wheel on the other side allows them to do that. So that's great. It is good that Canada Post is, walking the walk. We know we need more electric vehicles out there. and with a company certainly as Rivian, who has developed a drivetrain and battery system for Amazon and now for others. That sounds like a good team up, because this Morgan vehicle is it's utility designed. It's something that is designed for a specific job, and postal workers is one of those jobs. So this EV type work van is perfect for the job. And hopefully, with Rivian's input on the drivetrain and battery, it'll be a reliable vehicle that Canada Post can use for many years going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is good for Rivian as well, too, because I know Rivian is looking for customers as well, too, to expand their base right now. They've launched just a few new vehicles themselves, and they're trying to grow their business and try to get scale to their operations and stuff, too. So this is a good way to get some investment into Rivian as well, too, to hopefully keep their, create another entrant into the market and grow their business case as well, too, because they have some pretty impressive vehicles on the horizon that are coming out, and would certainly love to see that other options survive in the marketplace.
Exactly. So we look forward for an update from Canada Post on this as they get a little bit closer or start to have some vehicles for testing. It'll be interesting to see them on the roads. So look forward to that. Well, with that, Eric, I think we will wrap it up for stories for this month. If you haven't already, please press that subscribe button. Press the like button as well. That really helps out a small channel like this and gets us in front of more eyeballs when you interact with it. Also, send us a comment or two in the notes section. We'll be happy to respond to you that way. If you haven't signed up for the REVA newsletter, please let us know if you would like to be on that as well, because as we start to approach spring and summer and fall, we'll start having different outdoor events that are going to be taking place this year, and you wouldn't want to miss an event that's coming up. Get on that newsletter and you will be alerted to that for sure every time we have one. So with that, any shout outs this evening, Eric, from you?
Yeah, just I have a shout out. So this is a shout out to my brother, actually, who a couple days ago just took delivery of a brand new Blazer EV, actually. RS Blazer EV, that lucky bugger. And I'm a little jealous, but good to see again another EV on the road, and yeah. So
a question: was your brother driving an EV before this, or is this his first?
This is his first electric vehicle. So
congratulations to Eric's brother.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see him on the road soon.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, we thank again everyone for watching. We'll be back next month, and together we will see what's happening in REVA Electrifying news. Thanks, everyone. Have yourselves a great evening.